Immediately Omo got to her husband's house, she ran mad and started attacking anybody that came close to her. Once upon a time, there lived a young girl named Bisola. She was the first child and the only child of her parents for a while. She was hated by her mother, and her father cared less about her since she was a female child. Bisola's mother, Ire, blamed her for not having another child after her. Ire once visited a spiritualist who told her that Bisola was cursed and she was the reason Ire couldn't have more children. The spiritualist advised Ire to maltreat Bisola and treat her like a slave, which will help break the curse and open Ire's womb. Ire, who was willing to do anything to have more children for her husband, maltreated Bisola. Bisola was always unkempt and slept on the dark floor in a dark corner of the kitchen. Ire doesn't give her food or take care of her. Her husband Toby couldn't save Bisola from his wife. Most times, Bisola would visit her grandmother, Iya Toby, who always gave her food and encouraged her to be patient with her mother so that she would come to her senses one day. Ire would always look at Bisola with disdain and say to her, "You are nothing but a curse to this family. Why don't you just disappear? I gave birth to you, but you chose to block my womb, you evil child." Her words pierced the deepest part of Bisola's heart as she considered ending it all on so many occasions. But when she remembered her grandmother's kind words, her heart grew stronger. Iyatobi had always talked to Ire about the way she maltreated Bisola, but Ire wouldn't listen. However, Bisola kept going, hoping that one day she would receive the miracle that would vindicate her that she was innocent. Years later, Ire gave birth to 3 more children, Omolara fondly called Omo, Sheun and Tunde. She was filled with so much joy, but she didn't spare Bisola from her pains. She continued maltreating Bisola while her siblings enjoyed lavish meals. Bisola was given their leftover food to eat. For years, Ire used Bisola as a slave in her own father's house, even in her time of sickness. Bisola was constantly in pain, but her entire family despised her and treated her like an abomination. Ire never felt pity for Bisola. She continued treating her badly, even after she had 3 children. She made sure that her other children didn't come close to Bisola, and she made them believe she was cursed. Tunde was Ire's only son. He didn't like the way her mother treated Bisola, but he was afraid of his mother. Most times, Tunde will share his meals secretly with Bisola. He cracked jokes with her and tried as much as he could to make her happy, even in her difficult situation. Bisola goes to the stream very early before the villagers or late at night when no one could see her, as most villagers are. Due to her mother Ire and what she told the villagers about Bisola. Her younger sisters Omo and Sheun turned her into their slave. Ire made sure Bisola pampered them and she was always at their service. Omo and Sheun were so arrogant, proud and gossip. They made sure the entire village had every secret and rumor about Bisola. One evening, while Bisola was alone by the river, he noticed a young handsome man making some incantations. She quickly hid by the bush and observed. She could hear all the young man was saying. When she got home that night, while she was on the floor, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing the young man's voice in her head. She was too scared to tell anyone. As days went by, Bisola had forgotten what she saw at the river the other night, but she couldn't forget the voice. Ire and her 2 daughters were in the house when a stranger, A young, handsome, rich man came in. He introduced himself as Akin. He told Ire and her husband Toby that he wanted to marry their daughter Omo, whom he met the other day in the village square. When Akin left, the whole household was thrown into jubilation. Akin was rich and everyone loved him as a son-in-law. While amid the jubilation, Bisola walked in and shouted, "You can't marry him, Omolara." Everyone was shocked to hear Bisola speak with such audacity. Ire gave her a dirty slap and pushed her away. "You evil child, who invited you here?" Bisola, who lost her sight for a second from the slap, stood up and told them that Akin was diabolic and evil. Ire and her sister started laughing at her. "You cursed witch! How dare you call someone evil? You blocked my womb after I gave back to you. But look around, I have defeated you. Shame on you," Ire yelled at her. Bisola left to the dark corners where she sleeps. She kept thinking about what to do. She knew nobody could believe her, but she had to try. Tunde came to her corner that night and told her that he believed her. He also told her that something wasn't right about Akin, and he couldn't place his mind on what was it. Bisola told Tunde that she saw Akin making some devilish incantation by the river one night, and he promised to bring a young woman as a sacrifice. Tunde at that point took some steps back and told Bisola that maybe she was mistaking Akin for someone else. Bisola told Tunde she was very sure and she couldn't forget his voice. Tunde shuddered in disbelief as he left Bisola alone in her thoughts in the kitchen. The next day, Bisola went to her grandmother, Iyatobi, and explained all that happened to her. Iya told her that she would talk to Ire, her mother. Ire, who was busy gallivanting the entire village, telling everyone that her son-in-law, Akin, is very rich and handsome. Iyatobi called Omo and Ire. She advised them to listen to Bisola, as she had never told a lie before in her life. Ire didn't listen to her mother, neither did Omo listen to her grandmother. Ire got angry at her mother Iya for considering what Bisola told her. She told Iya that Bisola was jealous and she would do anything within her evil powers to stop anything good from happening in their lives. Akin gave Ire and her husband a huge sum of money in preparation for the wedding ceremony. Ire, who had never seen such money in her life, went to Bisola and showed her the money. She shouted, "You witch! Look at how Akin has changed our lives. But all you've caused me since I gave birth to you was pain. I wish you would vanish into thin air and never return." Bisola decided that she would leave them at that moment. That night, as she gathered her few things, she had a dream. She saw an old man who told her, "My child, your mother needs you. Do not leave her." The next morning, Bisola went to Iya and explained the dreams to her. Iya told her to pray about it and also advised her not to leave the village yet for her sake. Bisola agreed and thanked her grandmother. Despite Bisola's warning and advice, Ire insisted that Omo should go ahead with the marriage. Omo, who was overjoyed, went to Bisola and started mocking her for trying to steal her joy. Bisola cared less about what her younger sister and her mother said to her. She was worried about her sister. She was scared Akin might hurt her or use her as a sacrifice because she was very sure of what she heard at the river that night. On the eve of the wedding, Bisola was worried while the cooking and necessary preparation were going on. She thought of confronting Akin, but she was scared. She told Tunde of her plans to confront Akin and ask for his help. Tunde agreed to help him, but unknown to Bisola, Tunde went and told Ire about Bisola's plan. Ire, out of anger and frustration towards Bisola, locked her up in the hut and went away with the keys. A child that decided that her mother won't rest, That child won't rest too, Ire shouted as she walked away. Bisola was alone inside the hut, locked up while the wedding took place. Nobody cared to help her. Tunde, whom she trusted, stay. While the wedding ceremony was going on, Bisola was locked up. After the whole ceremony that evening, Omo went home with Akin. Immediately after she entered her husband's house, she started destroying things. She ran mad. Akin quickly grabbed her to avoid her creating a scene. He tied her up and locked her up in a room. Meanwhile, back in Bisola's house, Ire decided to let Bisola out of the room after starving her for 2 days. Neither Sheung nor Tunde came to her help. Their father never cared about what was happening to Bisola. He always trusted Ire's judgment. A week later, Sheung decided to pay Omo and Akin a visit, but when she got there, Akin asked her to leave and that his wife was not permitted to accept visitors. Sheung was surprised at Akin's behavior. She told her mother about it, and her mother advised her to leave the young couple alone for now. Akin kept Omo locked up with her madness. He threw food in for her through the window. His words tripled as Omo continued being mad. Bisola was right about Akin, but no one believed her. Months later, Bisola and Sheung got married to different men, not as rich as Akin. Akin and Omo were invited to Sheung's wedding, but only Akin came. He made sure Ire was comfortable. He gave her a huge sum of money. He told Ire Omo was sick due to her pregnancy. Ire was overjoyed to discover she was going to become a grandmother soon. Tunde, who was worried about Omo, went to confront Akin. He told Akin that he was evil and he would go to the world beyond to find out what he had done to his sister. Ire, blinded by Akin's words and benevolence, told Tunde to keep quiet and leave Akin alone. A few days later, after the confrontation, Tunde ran mad. Ire was devastated. She went to Sheung's house, but she told her she never wanted to set her eyes on her, that she was a wicked mother who treated her daughter Bisola with so much cruelty. Ire and her husband went to Akin for help about Tunde's condition, but he asked them to leave. They demanded to see their daughter Omo, but Akin refused. At that point, Ire knew Bisola was right. When Bisola heard what happened to Tunde, she brought a strong man of God who prayed for Tunde. Tunde was delivered, but the man of God warned them that their daughter Omo was in great danger and might not be saved. Tunde and Ire knelt down and thanked Bisola. They both asked for her forgiveness, especially Ire, who treated her with so much cruelty. Ire felt bad and ashamed the way she treated her own daughter due to what she was told by the spiritualist. Akin, who got a sense that he had been exposed, drove Omo back to Ire and vanished. Omo was mad and pregnant. Ire couldn't believe her eyes. She ran to Bisola for help. Bisola brought the pastor who prayed for Omo, but she couldn't get back to her fully normal self. Omo gave birth and her baby was healthy. Ire took care of Omo as they kept praying for her full recovery. Akin met his match as he went to another village to marry another young woman for his evil deeds, but he was struck with madness instead. Bisola lived happily with her husband and 2 children. She often visited Ire and Omo as they all lived happily ever after. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should be careful of fake prophecies. They have destroyed many families, homes, marriages, and relationships. Let's be guided and mindful of the prophecies we believe in. Always be compassionate towards others and treat them kindly because you never knew what the future holds. Do not make decisions out of desperation to avoid getting yourself into trouble. Until next time, kindly let us know where you're watching this story from. Thank you.